So you've signed the contract with the client, the price with the client is locked in, but at some point afterwards, the cost of the raw materials, the cost of you providing those services has gone up. Are you allowed to pass those costs to the client? We're going to talk about that in today. Hey out there, welcome back to Wedding Industry Law. My name is Rob. I'm a wedding industry attorney. A little different today. I'm not in the studio. I'm at the dog park. That's Nala. I'm a slave to schedule, and the only way to keep the schedule is if I made this video on the fly while walking Nala. So that's the change of pace. If you are into keeping your wedding business legal, then you are at the right channel. New videos, not necessarily just like this one every week, but we talk about all things business disputes, lawsuits, contracts, LLCs, that whole thing. So new videos drop every Monday, just like this one. So in today's video, we're talking about the idea of, can you pass along costs to the client if your expenses rise, but after the contract has been signed. So once the contract has been signed with the client, that is essentially locking in the terms of the deal, which theoretically would include the price. So if you are a DJ, photographer, whatever the case is, and you've told that client, this is the price, this is how much it's going to cost to do X, Y, or Z, then typically you are locked into that. Like that's it's not something that then becomes negotiable either way. Like they can't come and say, well, I'll give you a little bit less for your services. I'll give you, 10% less than what I was planning to, just because I don't have enough money now. Like it's kind of the same concept. That term is essentially locked in. Now, there are going to be, and when I say this, I'm talking about like the cost of gasoline to get to the place, the cost of a prime rib, like a plate of food, like the raw materials needed to do the job. Okay, I'm not talking about like maybe your secondary shooter or your assistant wants more per hour or something like that. I'm talking about a raw material, I guess, for lack of a better word. So again, like for the example, we use gasoline. Like it's going to cost you more to drive to the place, or maybe the food costs more. Like a plate of beef costs more. Okay, so these are things that you might not necessarily have taken into consideration when you signed the contract. So typically, it's in the same way that the client can't say, I lost my job, but can I pay you a little bit less? Typically, you can't go to the client and go, hey, listen, I know I told you $30 a head. Now it's going to cost me $31 a head. I need you to pay $31 a head. Typically, you can't do that, okay? Typically, you are locked into whatever you have agreed to at the outset. So from a basic legal standpoint, again, there's going to be exceptions to every rule, but from a basic legal perspective, whatever you have agreed to and locked yourself into, that's it. You cannot go with your hand out and go, hey, please, can I have some more? You typically can't do that. There are going to be some extenuating circumstances in which you can do that. There are essentially contractual defenses to when the world is crazy and things cost so much money that you would go bankrupt if you completed the contract. So in other words, there are essentially breach of contract exceptions that will allow you to get out of a contract if the prices go up. But typically that's going to be an extreme amount. So for example, if you're talking about your expenses going up by 1,000% or 100% or 500%, then it's going to be a matter of, okay, the law might allow you to get out of that contract and might not require you to fulfill that contract. It's a concept called the defense of impracticability, meaning that it's become impracticable, if not impossible, to do this without literally going under. But it has to be extreme. In most jurisdictions, it has to be extreme. It can't just be you're going to lose money. They don't care. If you lose money, that's just the cost of doing business. That's your mistake. You didn't foresee costs going up. It has to be something that's completely crazy, typically. And again, it's a defense it's a defense when the client sues you for breach of contract. So there are extenuating circumstances in which you could get out of the contract, or you would have a defense in that instance. But for the most part, no. So I guess at the end of the day, then, what can we do to prevent ourselves from having to absorb such a substantial loss that we're not going to make any money, but we're not going to be able to assert the defense of impracticability? How do we protect ourselves from those instances where it's not going to be worth it to do the contract, but you can't get out of it because you haven't established that defense? Okay, so if you're in an industry in which there is volatility, there is fluctuation with the raw materials that you need to complete the contract, then you can build in leeway into your contracts. So in other words, you can, if you're a caterer, if you're a venue, you can say, look, we're allowed a differential, we're allowed some leeway by a matter of 2%, 3%, 4%. You build in wiggle room with your costs, such that if the costs go high, then you can go up by whatever you've agreed to. So again, it's going to have to be something the client has agreed to, but you can work that into the contract. So you can say to the client, well, I hope that I don't have to increase the cost per head by 3% or whatever it is, but I have that option if I need it because of, I don't know, steak prices or whatever it is. And you can insert whatever you want into that. If you're flowers, for example, if you're a florist, you can say, look, with, I don't know, the flower that's only found in Ukraine, now it's cost me 25 times as much to get that flower. So because of my contract, I've built in that I have a threshold of 5% or whatever it is. Now I'm going to charge you that extra 5%. So you can at least cover yourself a little bit through the contract. But again, it has to be in the contract typically, and it has to be something that you have essentially agreed to with that client on paper. You can't just go to the client, for the most part, you can't just go to the client with your hand out and say, hey, give me some more money, please. It's for the same reason. The client can't come to you and go, I lost my job, can you take a little bit less? Like, no, we agreed to do this, and this is not something that's crazy out of the ordinary. So I hope that this video, although if you're not dizzy, hope it's been informative and helps you at least understand a little bit, because we are in crazy times right now in terms of, I know everybody says that, but if I go walk over 500 yards to the gas station, gas is almost double what it was a year or two ago. So I understand that sometimes we want to think to ourselves, how can we save money? In this instance, unless the client agrees to give you more, you're typically not going to have any legal right to get more. So with that, guys, every Monday, new videos just like this one. Maybe more will have Nala in them. I don't know. It just depends. If you like Nala, give this video a thumbs up. She's begging me to play with her, but I needed to get this video done first. And with that, folks, I guess that'll be it. I'll sign off for Nala, and for myself, we'll see you next week.